Is this not working? Let's start all over. Sorry. Okay, everyone. Thank you so much. I can start over now. This is day 1919. All these resets all the time. They mess up the system, and I always have to check because you never know when they're going to update it and whatever. So we are on 1919 days since Richard was forcibly removed from his barracks room, taken to the arms room. Of course, we have the seal, the crime scene seal, and they took his life there. It's a little known, very little known fact that General Eisenhower, James Eisenhower, um, ordered that that room be totally renovated, no expense spared, no expense spared, and also not going through the normal protocols of, um, bids for the renovation. So, a really huge information that we have filed on. This is when James Eisenhower was still the commander of Fort Bliss. Now it's Curtis Taylor, and all that was happening. And, they didn't tell us, hey, the arms room in your son's building that had a seal on it, that's the crime scene of where they took his life. No expense was spared to destroy all the evidence in there to renovate the room. Yeah. Uh, so, that's a little known fact, and I should probably say that more often because, with all this evidence coming together, piecing everything together, we can, we're at liberty to tell you more things. So, today's, so they took his life and then they stole his body, right? They took it out of there. They stole it. They took it off of Fort Bliss. They dismembered his body. We believe that because of the 3 autopsy report numbers that we have, that they cashed in on his body, that they impersonated us and cashed in on VA death benefits, that they cashed in on unidentified migrant humanitarian aid on that they traffic his body over to Juarez to cash in on it even more through unidentified migrants, through humanitarian aid, through NGOs over across the border, and that they dumped his whatever parts they had at the Plenitude Crematorium. And we're waiting now for DNA identification. Yet it's not that easy, even though Robert, our son, went over to give his DNA blood sample to the AG's office there in Juarez in October 2020, October 2nd to be exact. No, October 5th to be exact. We went over there October 2nd. We went over there so many times, but we went over to the AG's office on October 2nd, 2020 to submit a missing persons report over there when we were convinced that his body had been trafficked over the border. And on the 5th, Robert flew in and we went over there to give DNA blood samples to the AG's office to go through these unidentified bodies and tests to see if any were Richard's. Of course, there's dental records on top of that. And thank you, Anicia, for coming on so late. Thank you so much. I mean, look at it's 12:40 here. So we really appreciate it. We really appreciate the sharing because we're really growing, and the growing is what we are a government of the people, by the people, for the people, and it's our say so, our word, our demand, our sharing, our filing of complaints that will bring Richard's body home. That's what's going to bring Richard's body home, is demanding it. And yeah, so it's a little tricky because AG Peniche, Cesar Augusta Peniche is, his whole name. He tampered and obstructed our missing persons. He tampered with our missing persons file. He allowed that to happen with General um, John Kelly, uh, at the behest, at the, command of, of course, Woody Hunt and Alejandra de la Vega and Paul Foster. Those are the big names there. And we are not afraid to name the names because after over 5.5 years, the evidence is overwhelming, y'all. The evidence is overwhelming. And, so that Richard's remains are over there is absolutely been confirmed. That we are in negotiations to get his body back home is absolutely where we're at right now. And it is vicious because they did tamper with, the DNA and the missing persons report to law enforcement. So the law enforcement there in Juarez in Chihuahua, Mexico, was getting wrong information. They were getting wrong information to obstruct justice, to interfere with the investigation of our son. And they do this, under the cover of their positions, right? They use their positions like the AG, like the medical examiner, or the DA, or the county clerk, or the county judge, or the representative, or even the governor, the governor's mother as the oversight. They do this through deception. They get into these positions and they betray us, right, with deception. And they've gone really overboard, really bad, because they even deceive us using religious affiliations, right? They might even be part of the religion, but these are factions. They're up to no good. They're criminals. They are absolute criminals. And I'm talking about Leilani Hart under the Mormon faction, Dallas Hart under the Mormon faction, Woody Hunt under the Mormon faction, with the cartels, and Connell Witten under the Mormon faction, and also Artic Frost, special agent in charge, Aaron Tapp, Mormon faction, who now has been relieved of duty, but also Solomon Anusa, part of the Mormon faction, and his brother, former CID agent there on Fort Bliss, and they're relatives of Leilani Hart. And she was having a very intimate relationship with Tavita Nusa, who had lost his, didn't lose his badge, but had his badge terminated in 2021. And so, Danae Katzen is interesting because her husband's family was running a church, right? This is the hugest deception, right? A huge deception. And the funeral business, a mortuary business, works very closely with the different churches and religious organizations and humanitarian organizations, and the infiltration of all of that. It's just despicable to run this human trafficking and human corpse recycling um, business. Is just it's y'all, it needs to be, we need to hold them accountable for what they did, because it's so sacrilegious, and it's such a betrayal, right? And so, and of course, 500,000 children being trafficked using the Fort Bliss infrastructure through Fort Bliss, using that fuel, using that protection, using those vehicles, using all the base, 500,000. Okay, so the using the religious infrastructure. I'm sorry, I just like makes me want to cry. Um, but using the religious infrastructure, using the government infrastructure, the institutions, using our military infrastructure, they just won't ever stop, right? They don't ever stop. They have no brake system, right? They are just criminals that want more and more and more and more. And you see that what happened all the way up into Utah. That is very clear what's happening in TPUSA, all these concerns in TPUSA faith. And this is all mentioned through various people. And I think the loudest speaker for those various people is Candace Owens. And Candace Owens came out with a with um, with a statement, and the statement corroborates what we have been saying, that what's been happening in the El Paso borderland, right? So let me read you that statement, because I think it's really important um, for understanding everything. The connections with everything that we have said, even with the assassination attempts on President Trump, of course, the assassination of Charlie Kirk. And the more they look into it, the more they discover who the deep state operators are, and how they're operating, and how difficult it is to hold them accountable, because they're so entrenched. They're so entrenched, and it's always very, very difficult to identify these entrenched bad actors, because they're hiding behind their office, their agency, their institution, their badge, their uniform, um, their law degrees. They're hiding behind their religious affiliations, right? Um, and so it makes it really, really difficult to spot them. And it reminds me of a movie that I've mentioned in the past. It's called Brotherhood of the Bell, and you can watch it on YouTube. And I watched that years and years ago, and it's like, when you have people around you like Louis Ruiz Aguilar, right? When you have people around you like Sammy C, when you have people around you that are just there to deceive you, right? Um, they're operating in deception. They're not telling you their connections. Are not telling you why they're really there, right? They're saying they're humanitarian, right? That they're humanitarian, and and yet all their actions and all of their connections absolutely confirm otherwise, right? Confirm otherwise. And I'm just using them as examples because if you were watching us from the very beginning, you saw us with these people, and Jennifer, just many, many people that were absolutely Chris Martin, absolutely bad actors, they're deceivers. They're absolutely deceivers. And they're part of this group. And the same thing with like Bob Moore, right? Bob Moore and Manny Chavira, the chief of police of El Paso ISD. He's absolutely operating in deception. Same thing with the medical examiner. It moves all the way up. Medical examiner Mario Raskin Ortiz, of course, the county clerk, Delia Briones. You cannot forget her. You never really think of county clerk, but she has such an important role in all of this. So, sorry. So it is, goes all the way up to General John Kelly. It goes to Woody Hunt. Woody Hunt is the one that recommended John Kelly to the Maru administration there in Chihuahua, the governor's state government of Chihuahua, with Paul Foster, with Alejandro de la Vega Foster, also bringing up Cesar Peniche from Mexico City to be working this group, and they're up to no good, right? You have 500,000 children being trafficked. So let's read what Candace Owen, what she had to say. She said, "I've been saying that from the start that Mormons are involved in Charlie Kirk's assassination. Real Candace O is on point. Now look into everyone involved. They are all Mormon, including but not limited to Tyler and Lance. Also, those running the counter narrative on spaces and streams are all Mormon and are connected to the Mormons or are connected to the Mormons. Going down the Mormon road will make the Israeli connection clear." So, of course, she's been really focused on this whole Israeli Zionist connection. But what we found very interesting in her comments was, coming out and admitting this huge connection with the Mormons in Charlie Kirk's surroundings, right? And something is, I'm not investigating Charlie Kirk's assassination, but from the very beginning, when I saw Lance Twiggs's family are peers to Woody Hunt. They're very, very well off. They are peers to Woody Hunt, and that tells you something. This is not some poor kids, okay? This is not, um, you know, uh, and this is from the Mormon faction. He's a furry, he's transgender, he's homosexual, he's missing. I don't know if they found him now. And he is a suspect in all of this surrounding Charlie Kirk's assassination. And, there's just so much information out there that people are talking about because they want answers. They want answers to what happened to Charlie Kirk. Absolutely. And we all do, don't we? We all do. And we're not getting a normal investigation, right? We're not getting something is stinky, right? Something doesn't smell right. And that's exactly corroborating what happened down in El Paso on Fort Bliss with Richard's case. From the very beginning, it wasn't a normal investigation. It wasn't normal procedures. They were breaking all of the regulations and procedures and the way they were dealing with us, and the retaliation that we received. Um, the just the amount, you could tell they were lying to us. You could tell they were scared to death. Something was stinky, something was being covered up, you could just tell. And we have, from soldiers shaking in front of us that we've recorded and posted, um, from them lying to us about Nadal Baim. Why would they lie to us about Nadal Baim? Well, because he's connected to the cartel, and he's connected to Richard's command, right? And he's connected to Palestinian arms dealer, right? That's what he is, a Palestinian arms dealer. And, and he's connected to the Hearts. He's connected to the Hearts, Western Frontier Trading. And of course, the Hearts are connected to Dreams Cabaret. And Dreams Cabaret is connected to Brookshire and his wife. That's DPS, right? And Brookshire, is risking his whole livelihood to target us and to attack us. So that's, for what? For Jose Sanchez, for the director? No, I don't think so. I think that, of course, well, we have more information because of the ties and because of this new lawyer. Well, not a new lawyer, but the arrest of the lawyer of Mario Ortiz Sardoli. That is Saroldi or whatever, Saroldi. That is absolutely tied to this same group, y'all. It's the same group. It's the Soto, it's the Mejia, it's it's the same group. So, um, eh, and what she's saying, what Candace Owens is saying, corroborates what we have been telling people, what's been going on in Richard's case that's connected to the Walmart mass shooting case, that there is this Mormon faction that's tied to the cartel. And, there is a big Mormon faction, a big Mormon group that's in Chihuahua, Mexico, that has been confirmed to have ties with the cartel. You have the Labron family, you have many others, and they have a huge presence there in Colonial Juarez and Nove Casa Grandes and Nove Dublin. And it's just clear, and very wealthy presence there, with their school, with their temple, with all their property. And then to have uh, the long criminal history of what's been going on across that border, that ties all of them together. And then in Richard's case, to tie it even more together. It's, it's not. It's not an accident. And then it's not just coincidence, right? This is a pattern. This is a pattern. This is hard evidence. And then now you have Artic Frost. Artic Frost, that was led by FBI special agent in San Antonio, Aaron Tapp. And Aaron Tapp, he was just relieved from duty, but he has, these ties with this Mormon faction. And of course, we know that the FBI assistant special agent that has interfered with our son's investigation in big ways and has huge ties in Chihuahua, Mexico, is Connell Witten. Connell Witten is a part of this Mormon faction. And then you have the whole question about how did Richard's body move? How was it able to move? How were they able to steal his body and everything like that? And then you have the Mormon faction being in Solomon and Nusa, right? Solomon and Nusa mortuary operations, and his brother CID agent who had his badge terminated, Tavita Nusa. So this is and that the bad actors are in the DA's office, in the AG's office, in the governor's office, there in Chihuahua. These are all bad actors. We know that because the AG who interfered with Richard's um, file there in Chihuahua, Mexico, has now been accused of um, tapping in, siphoning billions of barrels of oil from Pemex, right? From Pemex pipelines there in Chihuahua. And more. There's also a murder case that he is, um, well, I think that's uh, no, that is, or there's so much information. There's a murder case that's an additional murder case that is um, tied to Cesar Peniche, and Cesar Peniche is not in Chihuahua, Mexico. He's hiding out under a TN visa in Texas, right? They want the protection of the United States, but um, and who got that for him, right? That's his connections. Could it be uh, General John Kelly that, got things moving so that he could get this TN visa, which is not for permanent residency at all. So it's violation upon violation upon violation, but it's all goes back to this tying with the cartel tied Mormon faction, right? The Mormon faction that's cartel tied. And then they use of course, humanitarian and NGOs under the Christian label to hide their illegal activity. And they will even say it. They will even say it. They'll claim all this religious speak. And I think we really have to vet our, the religion in people. I really do. You got to vet them like, okay, what do you believe and what are you doing? And then why are you doing this? If you're, I don't know. I just don't know. There's so much deception and they call themselves certain things and that's not what they are. And that's why they change their names. They change what and all they are really are criminals. Really, that's what they are, criminals. And so, and I think that maybe Candace Owens should say these are criminals, because what's going on here when we're not getting justice, when something is so stinky, when clearly um, everything was on camera, right? On camera. Everything was on camera. The investigation should not be that hard. Should not be that hard at all. And this is where we're at today because there's so much infiltration into all the institutions and the agencies that make this very difficult. But we've said from the beginning that the assassination attempts on President Trump are connected to Richard's case, and they are. They are. And that the assassination of Charlie Kirk are connected to Richard's case, and it is. It really is. That the Walmart mass shooting case is absolutely connected to Richard's case, and it is. And people say, wait a minute, how can all of this be connected to Richard Halliday? Well, the border is a big business. It's billions of dollars, and they will do anything to protect it. And Richard was a whistleblower. He was a whistleblower, and President Trump wanted to secure that border. Of course, he did now. He secured the border, and they didn't want a secured border. So that's why this is all very, very connected to and TPUSA um, moving people's minds. I really don't totally understand. I know that it's hundred millions of dollars that TPUSA is valued at, right? And it's a big organization. I wasn't the hugest follower of Charlie Kirk. I couldn't tell you. I'm sure I didn't agree with him with everything, but um, uh, with many things, I'm sure I did agree. But why was he such a target? Why was he such a target there in Utah? Why was it there? Why about the planes or mentioning the planes? Candace Owens, just listening to a little bit. I mean, she's doing what we've been doing, right? In Richard's case, she's really investigating. We've been investigating the planes. We've been investigating the border area, totally, all the people involved in all of this. Um, and so, that's what she's doing, and it's her right to do that. And um, it is not outrageous for her to admit what she's finding, right? What she's finding. And so I don't know um, what happened with that case. I do know with Richard, they took his life and they were telling us that he was just missing, right? And worse, but I don't want to repeat that. But that he was CONUS Dust One missing, right? And that's not true. They knew, and they had his body, and they covered it up, and they allowed it to be trafficked to Mexico. And now, 5.5 years later, we want his body. Um, you know, uh, it's it's to that point, this vision, you're going to see more and more arrests because it is a vicious negotiation for the repatriation of our son's body. So, okay, let's see. And it's really late, and we've had a really busy day. And I will absolutely admit that to you. But there's no time to sleep and no time to, we're never going to give up because we are, we can't let anyone down. We can't let anyone down. And um, people are sick and tired of this deception being exploited. The whole border area, borderland has been so exploited, and so many people have gotten hurt. And our military, this is a national security threat, and you can't have these bad actors like Aaron Tapp and Connell Witten in those positions. And we're very happy that Tapp was fired, and we're waiting for Connell Witten to be fired too. He absolutely needs to be fired, and he be made to pay back. Well, it's he should be arrested for what he has done. So we'll see. They're in big trouble. They're in big trouble with God. God is no buttercup, and their mistake is thinking that maybe God doesn't notice, but God does notice. God sees all things, and He cares very, very deeply. And you can't traffic over, 500,000 children, and betray your oaths. Oaths mean a lot to God. To betray your oath, to betray your vow. Um, yeah, it's yeah, God's no buttercup. They're in very, very big trouble. So let's see how the Trump administration, um, it's just been amazing to see how quickly they've gotten to this point. And so, we are absolutely never going to give up and keep you all informed in what we are being told day in and day out. So, thank you so much. And please share, and we will absolutely um, be back tomorrow, God willing. Okay.